Florida doesn't just have sun-kissed beaches and endless theme parks. Tucked away in the middle of a wildlife reserve, hidden beyond the trees and off a narrow dirt road, lies a sinkhole that plunges deep into the earth. Its surface may look serene, just a glassy, quiet pool surrounded by forest, but what lurks beneath has been described as one of the most dangerous underwater caves in the entire United States. This place is called Eagle's Nest, and for decades it has drawn some of the world's most experienced cave divers. It's a siren song for thrill seekers and technical divers who want to test the limits of human endurance, training, and survival. But this isn't a place for tourists or casual swimmers. Since 1981, it's believed to have claimed over 10 lives. And the more you learn about this place, the easier it is to understand why. There's something haunting about Eagle's Nest, something that calls to people who believe they can beat it. Divers talk about it like it's a living thing, unforgiving, patient, and always waiting. What makes it worse is how deceiving it is. From the surface, it's just a calm pool in the middle of the woods, no louder than a pond and no different from any number of other quiet Florida springs. But underneath, it opens into a sprawling, twisting labyrinth of narrow passageways, blind corners, and rooms large enough to make you feel like you're inside a sunken cathedral. It's easy to see why so many have been drawn to it. The walls shimmer with ancient clay. The water turns to absolute stillness. Every sound is muffled, every movement amplified, and as you descend deeper, the light fades, the colors vanish, and the silence becomes something you can feel. Eagle's Nest isn't just deep, it's psychological. It pushes divers to the edge of their mental limits. People often describe a creeping sense of time slowing down, of space becoming distorted. Your instincts start to lie to you. Your own mind becomes part of the danger. Even experienced divers have said they felt watched down there, not by a person, but by the cave itself, like it knew they didn't belong. Because once you're inside Eagle's Nest, the water isn't your biggest threat. It's the darkness, the pressure, the silence, and something else that nobody can ever really prepare for: panic. It was Saturday, October 15th, 2016. Three friends stood at the edge of that peaceful sinkhole, preparing for what should have been a breathtaking but carefully planned dive. Their names were Chris Rittenmeyer, Patrick Peacock, and Justin Blakely. All three were certified cave divers, and this wasn't their first time venturing into underwater systems. In fact, Peacock and Rittenmeyer were considered very experienced. They knew the risks, and they came prepared. That morning, the men arrived at the Chassahowitzka Wildlife Management Area in Hernando County, Florida. It's not exactly an easy place to get to. The road is long, remote, and dusty, surrounded by thick forest, and the only way to reach the sinkhole is through a rough trail that's plastered with warning signs. Not subtle ones either. One of the signs reads, "Stop, prevent your death, go no further." And beneath it is an image of the Grim Reaper. Even with all that, the men pressed on. And for good reason. They weren't reckless teenagers sneaking into a cave. They were experienced divers with all the right gear, training, and procedures. They weren't thrill seekers out for internet fame. They were professionals. The plan was clear. Blakely, the least experienced of the three, would stay near the cave entrance, keeping relatively shallow and safe. Meanwhile, Rittenmeyer and Peacock would venture deeper, pushing into the lower chambers of the system. They had a very detailed schedule and equipment strategy in place. Even the day before, they had returned to the cave to carefully stage their bailout bottles. Those are extra diving cylinders used for emergencies. These were placed at very specific points, 20 feet, 70 feet, and 120 feet deep. But none were staged beyond that. That's important. Inside Eagle's Nest, the cave branches into three major tunnel systems. One of them, the downstream tunnel, is especially complex and known for its narrow, maze-like passages. That's where Rittenmeyer and Peacock were headed. They weren't just sightseeing, they were aiming for a deep, specific area that very few divers have ever reached. The downstream tunnel isn't just dangerous, it's disorienting. Its layout twists like a knot, with tight squeezes, sudden drop-offs, and deceptive junctions that can lead you in the wrong direction fast. Visibility can vanish in seconds with even the smallest movement of sediment. Some sections are barely wider than a human body. Others open up into vast chambers, giving divers a false sense of space before funneling them right back into claustrophobic corridors. Mapping this tunnel isn't simple either. Over the years, explorers have tried to chart its full extent, but there are still portions that remain undocumented. Some divers have even described moments where their compasses spun uncontrollably, like magnetic fields were being distorted deep inside the system. Others talk about sudden currents that seem to come out of nowhere, strong enough to knock a diver off balance or push them deeper into the dark. What's especially cruel about the downstream tunnel is how easily it can lure even a seasoned diver further than they intended to go. The deeper you go, the more you convince yourself that turning back now would be wasting the effort. That next chamber, that next bend, it might be the one worth seeing. But that mindset can be fatal. Divers get caught chasing their own curiosity, believing they can handle just a little more. That's the trap. Rittenmeyer and Peacock weren't careless. They weren't chasing a thrill. They were chasing precision, trying to reach areas like John's Pocket, Jim's Room, the Half Moon Room, and eventually the fabled Room of Dreams. But to get there, they'd have to face the cave's most infamous obstacle, one that's turned experienced divers into statistics. Their gear was top-notch. Both divers were equipped with closed-circuit rebreathers, or CCRs. Unlike traditional scuba systems that release bubbles into the water, rebreathers recycle the gas, remove carbon dioxide, and allow for longer dive times with less disruption to the cave's sediment. Less disruption means better visibility. And in a place like Eagle's Nest, visibility is everything. They also had underwater scooters, allowing them to cover more ground quickly, and one backup scooter in case of failure. On paper, it was the perfect setup. At 2 p.m., Rittenmeyer and Peacock were deep inside the downstream tunnel. They'd passed Randy's room, breezed through the super room, a chamber said to be the size of an aircraft hangar, and were pushing toward one of the cave's most notorious features, the pit. The pit is infamous for a reason. It's one of the deepest parts of any underwater cave in the U.S., reaching a jaw-dropping 310 feet, or 94 meters. But it's not just the depth that makes it dangerous. The passage is narrow, twisting, and the visibility can drop to near zero with the slightest disturbance. Divers have to squeeze their way through tight corridors and then somehow keep their orientation. And it was here, at around 260 feet deep, where things took a tragic turn. At 2:43 p.m., roughly 43 minutes into their dive, Rittenmeyer and Peacock reached the entrance to the pit. They attempted to pass through, but something went wrong. 3 minutes later, they emerged from the narrow passage. They didn't give up right away. They spent 6 minutes floating outside the entrance, likely discussing whether or not to try again. Then they made a decision. They went back in. One of them managed to make it through. The other didn't. We still don't know for sure who cleared the restriction and who got stuck. But what happened next tells us everything we need to know about how much these men cared about each other. The one who made it through turned around and went back in to find his friend. That's when everything spiraled out of control. Somewhere during that desperate effort, Peacock began removing his equipment. In diving, that usually signals extreme stress, disorientation, or an emergency attempt to free yourself from entrapment. Rittenmeyer lost his headlamp, plunging him into total darkness. And for reasons no one can fully explain, neither diver deployed any backup lights. Peacock ended up floating in the depths, wearing only his mask, fins, and suit. His gear was scattered, his rebreather abandoned, even though it still contained usable oxygen. It's now been 61 minutes since they entered the water. Whoever abandoned their rebreather was still trying to breathe, using their inflation bottle, a small cylinder meant for adjusting buoyancy, not for breathing at that depth. It's like trying to drink through a cocktail straw during a fire. Meanwhile, Justin Blakely had surfaced at their agreed meeting time of 3 p.m., but Rittenmeyer and Peacock didn't show. At first, he waited. Then he went back down to check. Nothing. Up again. Back down. Over and over. Until eventually, as daylight began to fade, he made the call that no diver ever wants to make. He dialed 911. The Hernando County Sheriff's Office received the call. When dispatchers heard Eagle's Nest, their hearts sank. Everyone knew what that meant. It was going to be a recovery mission, not a rescue. Search teams began arriving. navigating rough forest trails with four-wheel drive vehicles, headlights slicing through the Florida darkness. They found Blakely waiting at the surface, alone and shaken. His partners were gone. That night at 11 p.m., the first recovery divers entered the water. John Burnow and Charlie Robertson, a Navy veteran and world record-holding diver. They headed into the upstream tunnel and the Lockwood Tunnel, checking all the pre-staged bailout bottles. Every single one of them was untouched. At 3:30 a.m., they surfaced, empty-handed. 15 minutes later, a second team took over. Ted McCoy, an Olympic gold medalist diver, and A.J. Gonzalez, a firefighter and paramedic. Their mission was to explore the one area that hadn't been checked, the downstream tunnel where Peacock and Rittenmeyer had planned to go. They didn't have to search long. Not far from the exit side of the pit, they found them. The bodies of Patrick Peacock and Chris Rittenmeyer were discovered floating near each other. According to protocol, the site was now considered a crime scene. For 45 minutes, McCoy and Gonzalez documented every detail, collecting depth data, observing equipment positions, and carefully logging their findings. As the sun rose over the trees, news of the tragedy began to spread. Journalists, photographers, and TV crews swarmed the remote area, but no one had clear answers. All anyone knew was that two of the most skilled divers in the sport had gone into the depths and never came back. Over the following days, a full recovery operation was launched. Despite the risks, divers returned to the pit, carefully retrieving every piece of equipment. It was all recovered: CCR units, masks, tanks, everything, and none of it was broken. Not one malfunction, not one system failure. Every regulator, tank, and circuit was in perfect working order. That's what makes this story so chilling. These men didn't make careless mistakes. They followed every known protocol. They had backup plans, experience, top-tier equipment. According to experts, they did everything right, and they still died. The National Speleological Society, after completing a thorough review, listed the cause of death as unknown. Their official report included the haunting line: "Sometimes bad things happen to good people for no apparent reason." Even today, the diving community debates what went wrong. Did one of them panic? Was there an unexpected silt out? A sudden equipment issue that went undetected? Or was it the crushing psychological toll of extreme depth, where nitrogen narcosis, also known as Martini's Law, can leave even the most seasoned diver mentally impaired, like being drunk underwater? Some believe that despite all their training, they were simply too deep for too long, and something in the dark, narrow confines of the pit just broke them. The only person who truly knows what happened down there is gone, and what remains is a chilling reminder that even the best prepared diver is still vulnerable inside places like Eagle's Nest. It's a beautiful, silent tomb, one that gives you no warnings, no second chances, and no room for error. And it's still open. Despite over 10 confirmed fatalities, Eagle's Nest remains accessible to certified cave divers. Some argue that it should be permanently closed. Others believe that the right to explore comes with the risk, but the signs are still there, the ones with the Grim Reaper waiting at the entrance, quietly asking one final question to anyone who dares go deeper. Do you really want to enter? Because inside Eagle's Nest, experience isn't always enough. Preparation can fail, light can vanish, and silence down there doesn't mean peace. It means you're alone. Thanks for watching. If this story gripped you like it did countless others, consider subscribing and turning on notifications for more real-world tales that defy explanation. And if you want to support storytelling like this, check out the link below. More true stories coming soon.